Welcome to the KBB Review podcast. I'm editor-at-large Rebecca Nottingham, and this is another of our very special Rising Star episodes, where we meet the upcoming superstars of kitchen and bathroom retail. Between August 2024 and March 2025, we'll be picking a monthly Rising Star to feature in the magazine, online, and this very podcast. Those 8 monthly winners then become the shortlist for the overall winner, which will be revealed at the KBB Review Retail and Design Awards 2025 in April. It's done with the support of our very good friends at Blum, and you can find out more about them at blum.com. You can nominate your Rising Stars, or indeed nominate yourself, via the awards website kbbreview.com/awards. And there are only 2 rules. They must be currently employed by a retailer, which we're defining as a company that sells direct to the consumer, and they must be 30 years of age on March the 4th, 2025. Other than that, they can perform any job role within your business. Admin, design, sales, finance, installation. We don't mind as long as they're a star. So, here's our Rising Star for October, Luke Niblett from Luxe Kitchen Designs. He started out as a cabinet maker, but decided he wanted to run his own business, and before he's even 30, he's managed to not just do that, but do it very successfully. And here is Luke. Welcome to the KBB Review podcast.
Hi Rebecca, nice to be here. Nice to talk to you.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations for being our Rising Star for October. It would be good to find out a little bit about you, really, and your KBB industry story. How did you get into kitchens?
Well, it's a bit of a weird one, really, because I started off as a cabinet maker, and that's what I always wanted to be. So, yeah, I did my traineeship as a cabinet maker when I was sort of 17, but I always had a second job. So I had a part-time job working at a kitchen design showroom, and I always had that. So whenever I was on the tools in the week, every Saturday I'd be in the showroom, and they kind of went hand in hand a little bit. And I got to the point with cabinet making where I'd hit a ceiling. I've done making, I've done spraying as well, and I've done installing. And it kind of got to a point in my life where I wanted to push myself a bit further, and I wanted to be in design. So I made the jump from cabinet making to kitchen design full time. That meant as well, I only had to work one job, which was nice.
Well, yeah, that makes a difference as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, then I worked for a few different showrooms, and then eventually towards the end of last year decided to start on my own, and been going ever since.
You make that sound easy. So for listeners, you started Luxe Limited in March this year?
Yeah, but basically the first sale went through in March. The company technically started in September last year, but there was a lot of groundwork to do before then.
Okay, so introduce Luxe Limited then. Tell me about that and how that all works and operates, because I think it's a slightly different business model to other retailers.
Yeah, because I have worked in various different places, and I've seen how things are manufactured, and I've seen how different showrooms operate. I've sort of tried to take bits and bobs from different companies and mould it into what I think works best, certainly for me. So the way I've set up Luxe is I've made sure everything's local. So I don't manufacture myself. I use a local manufacturer. So I'm not having to import, or the carbon footprint's kept fairly low. But it also means the manufacturer that I've picked also has their own showroom, which means that I don't have to have my own showroom. So everything I do is technically remote based, but I've got the option to take customers to the showroom, which I do regularly as well. I've got 2 meetings booked next week. I've also got a van that's basically full of all the relevant samples I need. So I'll go out to a customer's house to measure up, show them all the samples, book in to the showroom. But what it predominantly means is I don't have the overheads that other companies have. So I don't have to have such a large profit that other people have, but it's still good quality stuff. The best way I can sort of put it is I can compete with the likes of Wren and Howdens and places like that, but with a far better quality product. And I think if I didn't go through the cabinet making side of things, I probably wouldn't have appreciated the difference in quality. But I do. And that's why I think I don't want to necessarily compromise on the quality of stuff. But in my experience, everybody's got a budget. And usually when you present the price to a customer, it's over their budget. So I'm just trying to give them something that's within budget, but still a good product to have.
Yeah. Remind me where you are in the world as well, Luke.
So I'm right in the middle. I'm Leicestershire, but I'm sort of Hinckley way. So that's sort of like West Leicestershire. So the manufacturer that I use, they're just at the top of Leicestershire. My quartz fabricators, they're in Coventry. So that's literally half an hour down the road. Obviously, we've got Hayfully as well in Rugby for all my hardware and stuff like that, which are, again, half an hour down the road. It also means that customers have the option of viewing the worktops. You know, they can just drive half an hour, 45 minutes, and they can see my quartz fabricators too. And they can see basically how the sausage is made. In that respect, you know, they can go around the workshop. So it just works out really well. And the one thing I was a little bit cautious of is whether customers would want to go to all these different places and have the hassle. But actually, the feedback I've had is that it's less effort for them because I bring all the samples over to them initially. They kind of know what they want, and then they just go to the showroom just to confirm it. It just works really well.
Yeah, I think you've got quite a unique background as well. You know, the cabinet making really gives you a totally different viewpoint to a lot of other retailers. You've been part of the actual manufacturing process and the fitting process and the design process. So it's all encompassing. But it's a really savvy, entrepreneurial way of looking at things as well. I think that's really interesting, the way you've attacked the business side of things.
Like I say, it's just from working in different places and just seeing what works and what doesn't work. There are challenges to not having a showroom, and you've got to work a little bit harder to convince people that you are a serious business. And there's things I've done to allow for that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more work you've got to do in some respects. But in other respects, customers have responded really well to the fact that it's less expensive. That's really hit bullseye with a lot of people. And I have had comparable quotes with larger kitchen suppliers and things like that. And it has proved that I am competitive, you know, against them. So yeah, it's definitely working.
How do you market the business? Is that through social media? Is it becoming word of mouth? How do you get the footfall?
So Katie, my partner, she's amazing on social media. So she's basically running my Instagram, my Facebooks, all that stuff. I don't necessarily want to give away my secrets too much, but I've kind of got a couple of processes where I can pinpoint my target market, which has also proved effective. And then also, I guess I'm a little bit old school, but I really, and this might sound a little bit cliche, but I really do believe that if you go the extra mile for a customer, you'll stick in their memory, and then that word of mouth recommendation will sink in a little bit more. Which again, I've had that a little bit now. I mean, I'm still a new company, but I have had a couple of jobs come through from recommendations that were only fitted this year. So that's really where I'm hoping the main source of work will come in, just through recommendations. Yeah,
look, it's a really, really interesting business model. Do you think you might have your own showroom in the future? Is this just the beginning for Luxe?
Yeah, I have got plans to expand in the future. What I'd really like to do, because I just remember when I was a designer working for other companies, I didn't think it was necessary to be in the office 9 to 5. So what I'd really like to do is have designers that work for me that are remote based and that can work from home. And if I have different designers in different territories and then maybe just have a singular showroom that they can all use or something like that, that's certainly something I'm considering, but I'm a little bit away from that at the moment.
Yeah, but that's really interesting as well, because I think just listening to you, there's a couple of things that have come through that really show the perspective of the new generation of people coming through into this industry. You know, you've already mentioned carbon footprint and being mindful of your carbon footprint, keeping all of the suppliers as local as you can. And also this work-life balance, which I think is a strong new way of thinking for new business owners.
It took me a long time to get out of the mindset of you don't have to work 9 to 5. And actually, when you're doing creative things like designing, sometimes you're not in the mood to design. And sometimes you just want to have a cup of tea in the garden or just chill out for a bit and walk the dog, come back, and then you just reset. And then you are in the mood to design. Whereas if you're in an office, you're basically being paid to sit down at that computer and do your job.
So we've heard about how you got into the industry, and it'll be almost 13 years. Am I correct? Did you say you were 17 when you started?
Yeah, I mean, I've been telling customers over 10 years. I'm yet to. Yeah, I think it is about 13 years now.
So what keeps you doing this job? What do you love most about being in the kitchen industry?
That's a good question. I could probably give you an example. I've just finished a kitchen yesterday for a really, really lovely older gentleman who is very, very old school, never had a new kitchen in his life, and he's lived in that property for over 40 years. So he was really interested. You know, he was watching the whole process, asking so many questions, flabbergasted by the whole thing. Having quartz fabricators come in and laser the tops, it blew his mind. Anyway, just having that sort of satisfaction of having a happy customer and someone that's genuinely passionate. It's just that satisfaction, I think, that keeps you going. Because, you know, there are certainly times where you're frustrated and, you know, you can spend hours up to days on working on jobs that don't come into fruition, that customers will just go somewhere else for no apparent reason. And it can be very frustrating. But yeah, I think once a job's been installed and you get that seal of approval from the customer, that's everything to me.
With that guy as well, particularly, you're changing his life from now on, aren't you? You know, how he lives and works around that space that is so important in a home.
I mean, he was an interesting one as well because his house was that, I mean, I don't know the best way to word it, but it just wasn't necessarily updated. So in his kitchen, he had one socket and he had about 7 extension leads coming out of that socket. His combi boiler was plugged into an extension lead. And it was all brick walls as well. So we got about 6 new sockets in, chased them all into the brickwork, replastered it, put a socket in the back of his pantry unit, which blew his mind. And yeah, just something as simple as just having more sockets in the room has just changed. You know, he's like, I can have my microwave over here now without a massive cable going across the sink, things like that.
Scary stuff that he's managed to live like that for 40 years.
I know, yeah.
And who fits your kitchens?
I use subcontractors. Again, I've just found that the best fitters work for themselves. I know that's not always the case. Just in my experience, that's what I've found. But a couple of them I've been fitting myself just because I've got those skills and, you know, if they're fairly local. So that example I just gave you, I fitted that one myself. That'll be going up on the Instagram in the next few days.
Amazing. And I guess that as well, the fact that you're designing them, you know how they're made and you can fit the kitchens just gives you that project management expertise.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot, though, to do all of that in one go. And I'm trying to get to the point where I'm not on the tools anymore. But the odd job comes up and it's too sweet to not fit myself.
Considering where you've already got to, what does success really look like to you in this industry, in this space?
I think for me, what would be nice, at the moment, I'm currently in the stage of hard grafting. Most of my waking hours are spent working. If I can get to the point where I'm running a business which is pretty much self-sustaining, however, I still have a voice in it. You know, I can still do my daily work and get involved in different projects and things like that, but it can run itself and I can go on holiday for a week or two and I don't have to worry. That would be success for me, for sure.
And I think you may have touched on it, but just to sum up, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years?
Hopefully still working for Lux, hopefully a lot bigger. Like I say, I've got plans to expand it. So yeah, hopefully I'll just be implementing that. That's it, really. That's all that's on my mind for the future. Personally, me and Katie are due to get married next year, so that's really exciting.
Lovely year for you next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, we've got some plans and stuff like that. But yeah, just nice holidays and yeah, just a happier life, really.
Why do you think it is important to encourage more young people to get into the industry and to take on stronger roles within the industry like yourself? Why do you think it's that important?
I can go into that quite a lot, to be fair. I think there's a bigger issue that I think the younger generation, it's hard to explain, but for example, if you've got the choice of being a kitchen designer or being a kitchen fitter or being a millionaire on social media or YouTube or something like that, which path are you going to choose? So it's really a case of giving young people an incentive to join our industry. I'm especially talking about fitting here because we're finding there's less and less people going into installation. And I think it's for that reason. What's motivating young people to have a lifetime of hard graft on the tools when they could be playing games on YouTube and making millions. Yeah, I think it's just finding those incentives and making the job an enjoyable experience for young people, because it genuinely, for me, it's the best job in the world. I mean, I absolutely love it.
But I mean, incentive, it can be a very lucrative job. Perhaps that's what we just need to get across. We need to educate people, or young people, that it is a profession rather than just something necessarily that they fall into. Because I think at the moment, that's how we get people into the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a blurry job role, because, like you say, a lot of people fall into it, myself included, and a lot of people I've worked with have fallen into it. You can start off as a joiner, and then you end up fitting a few kitchens, and then you're a kitchen fitter, and then you start designing them. Now you're a kitchen designer. So yeah, I definitely think there's not necessarily like a definitive job role for what we do. And I guess the other slight issue is, because I went to college and did cabinet making, there wasn't necessarily a course for specifically kitchen fitting, and there might well be, but I'm not aware of it. And I guess it's just defining that as a specific job and a specific industry, rather than something that, like you say, you just end up doing. You
kind of fall into. Yeah. I think you're right. It's all about creating more standards and creating on paper a profession, because it is a profession.
Yeah, it's a little bit like chefs, isn't it? It's like you don't have to be qualified to be a chef. And what qualifies to be a chef? Is it running a food truck? Does that make you a chef? Or do you have to have a restaurant? And I think it's very similar here, in that there's nothing I can put on my website to say I'm a qualified kitchen designer. You've just got to take my word for it. So maybe if there was like a bit like an electrician, how you've got to pass a course. Because I guess the other thing as well, if you actually look at the specifics of kitchen design, there are standards that I believe you should stick to. But there's so many companies out there that don't stick to those standards. And that's things like not putting end panels on units and things like that. So you end up seeing the carcass. Just little things like that. I really think it should be more standardized. But in order to understand what the standard is, you need to be taught it. And to be taught it, you need a course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, look, maybe in 5-10 years, once your business is up and running, we'll turn to you to get that.
Yeah, we'll have the Lux College.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you never know. Look, it's been great speaking to you, and good luck at the KBB Review Retail and Design Awards next April.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really nice chatting to you.
Thanks, Luke.